Hello and welcome to Sonic Talk. This is the podcast that talks about all things music technology, music production, live, software, hardware, synthesizers, drum machines, you name it. We'll talk about it or not talk about it, depending on how the topics goes. Please say a big thank you to our sponsors at iZotope. They will be giving away a copy of their Vocal Synth vocal processing plugin a bit later on in the show, probably about halfway through. Show runs to about an hour if you've not heard it before. If you like what you hear already, and frankly, why wouldn't you? You can subscribe, and this goes out every week on Wednesday at 4 p.m. UK time, directly live streamed to YouTube, so you can watch it live if that's what you want via sonicstate.com/live. I want to say hello to all the people in the chat room, and nice to see them there. We, as well as the IRC that we have at sonicstate.com/live, you can also check out the chat at YouTube live, which is youtube.com/sonicstate/live, and there's a chat room there as well. So anyway, want to say hello and welcome to our guests. Let's start with we'll start with Mr. Mark Tinley. We haven't seen him for a while. Mark there adjusting his hair. You've got a fairly, I must say, Mark, is it your shopkeeping tendencies that have made your hair go a bit pedestrian? I'm a bit concerned that you're becoming a little too conservative, Mark.
I shaved it all off and it's just been generally kind of growing, so I haven't got time for a haircut. That's probably what it is, more than anything else. That
sounds like good news. So it's all going well.
Well, here's how well it's going, okay? Up until today, I've been selling the odd guitar strings and kind of turning over maybe £40, £50 a day, right? And just kind of pottering along, and it's all been going nice. And I've been thinking, I quite like being a shopkeeper in Glastonbury, just helping out, the hippies by selling them strings and just, being kind of cool. And my wife's gone away working, so she's in London working. So I've got like full-on childcare duties. So I said to my son today, look, come to the shop with me. And if you come to the shop with me, I'll give you 10% of anything that I take. So he's like, yeah, okay, cool. So today I sold a banjo, an Appalachian Mountain dulcimer, a cigar box guitar, and all the usual strings and things, and drumsticks and stuff. So I probably turned over, I've got to give him at least 30 quid. So the first time he's ever been to the shop, it suddenly just gone. So I'm thinking, maybe it's a lucky charm. I think I need to take him to work every day, because it's like I've probably made 10 times today what I've made on any other day since I've been open. So it's extraordinary. So it did extraordinarily well today for that shop. So yeah, it's cool and it's fun, and I've been finding all sorts of strange synthesizer manufacturers, like kind of little what would you call cottage industry synth makers. So I've got somebody making me these really bizarre noise synths at the moment, which are in kind of gnarly wooden boxes with tactile controls and wooden dials and all sorts of weird stuff.
Style. Oh, that sounds good.
Kind of. But he makes his own oscillators, and he's making them out of something that they're true analog, but he's making them out of something that nobody else uses, and he won't tell me what it is. But this, so it's in. I suppose I could open it up and have a look, but it's. I'm quite excited by that, and I'm learning to program Arduino, and I made a really crunchy, nasty 8-bit synthesizer from an Arduino. What's the smallest one called? Nano.
Yeah.
Which is basically a Nano with a MIDI in socket and an audio out socket, and that's about it, and some code, and it's got like a low pass filter and some wavetables in it and stuff. So that's quite good fun. So yeah, it's all good fun.
Great. All of it. I'm glad to hear it, Mark. Well, and I will nip over to the other side of Rich is not on the East Coast this time. He's on the West Coast. Mr. Rich Hilton, on tour with the travelling disco chic band in a hotel with what looks like pretty decent bandwidth. I guess you're in California, you'd expect that, really, wouldn't you? How are you, Rich, and how's it going?
Well, thank you, and it's going really well.
Good. Playing tonight or played last night?
Playing tonight here in Paso Robles, California.
Okay, and is that and that's at the county? Is it the county fair? Did you say?
I believe it's the Mid-State California State Fair. In other words, this is pretty much equidistant from Los Angeles and San Francisco, somewhere along near the California coast. And it's beautiful, beautiful country if you like peaceful. And very much looking forward to tonight's show. The tour has been fantastic.
Great. Well, I'm glad to hear that, Rich. So I guess we should crack on. We didn't do this last week, but there has been another in the series, so I guess we should play it. And this is actually quite a big reveal.
I mean, it's really got sort of O behind me and a Juno, but kind of somewhere between the two, which is actually really, really nice.
Even for myself, who likes to do more experimental type stuff in sound design textures and stuff, it seems to be able to handle that extremely well. And musical stuff, obviously, it excels at that.
It's got such an organic kind of sound to it. I'm always looking for something that's got a bit of that kind of makes you want to sort of start writing something. It's always a good sign.
I mean, that's what you want. That's what you want from a polysynth, isn't it? That's exactly the kind of sounds that you want. Oh, that's so nice. That's so nice.
You guys did a great job on this. This is definitely very impressive right off the bat. Yeah.
I played the whole thing there because I'm playing for time, because it seems like Sonic has decided to just go offline while we're doing the podcast. So if you've got the page open now, don't reload it. I'm just working on getting the server rebooted. Sorry about that, folks. So yeah, that's the news of the Behringer Synth, which I think that's volume 4 of the teasers. 12 voice analog poly. That's got to be something to shout about, right? I don't know, Rich. I know you're not keen on commenting on things that haven't been released. I'm going, but knowing what we know about them generally, and 12 voice analog that's an ambitious number of voices, I guess. Knowing that Behringer often go for the lowest possible price. You excited at all?
Sure. I'm always amused when somebody refers to something full of oscillators and filters as organic. But anyway. Yeah, sure. Great. Dave Smith did this. We didn't devote 5 shows to it, but yeah.
I haven't devoted 5 shows to this. I think that's unfair.
At this point, I think they owe me one.
Okay. Well, we mentioned it, I think, first teaser or whatever, but that divulgence of that information seems to be a bit of a major one. I know, Mark, have you got any thoughts? Is this something that you would consider yourself? I mean, I know you're not necessarily into large format instruments, but I thought it was worth mentioning it.
Sounded nice. Sounded really nice. Especially as it's coming over the old Skype bandwidth. It sounded, I don't know, I could hear something in it. I like the fact that it could do the kind of JX-y kind of stringy thing, and it could do the property kind of bellsy sort of thing, and the price will be the deciding factor, I think. If it's in Behringer's usual price range, although I know they're trying to move away from that, but if it's in the sort of the budget end of the market and it sounds like that, then it will be an absolute winner. If it costs as much as a Prophet 12 or a Prophet, what are they called? 5s or whatever Prophet the numbers 6, are on those Prophets. 6. Yeah, that one. I think I'd buy one of those instead, actually, personally. But
no, it's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, we will indeed have to say. C, even. Right. Well, anyway, I imagine there's more to come, but I mean, I don't know what else you can say after they've revealed that it's 12 voices. I'm not sure. I guess we should know how much it is and what the name is, and I think the how much is going to be the real clincher. Obviously, there's speculations going from under $1,000 to under $2,000, but so that's a pretty wide range of possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, maybe I can open a trade account with them, and then I can have them in my shop.
Well, there you go. That's entirely possible, I guess. I don't know what
good excuse to have one, isn't it?
I'd imagine you might have to take an enormous amount of other Behringer stock for that to happen, but as was,
I don't think my shop's big enough.
Perhaps not. Okay, right. Well, let's get on to a second topic. Oh, yeah, I like the look of this. Actually, I thought this sounded awesome. This is the now what are they called? Endagered Audio Research Spectravibe, which I think is a combination of distortion, filter, and univibe type of sound. And it's just got the mini log going through it, which I must admit, it makes it sound really, really, really nice. Nice and warm and lots of crunch. This is almost getting into the territory of the sort of stock you'd have in your shop. There's a whole bunch of different sounds. Let me see if I can fast forward it to some other sounds, because it's really nice. Let's see, there's a few more examples. Obviously goes quite fast. Not sure about that one, that sounds a bit random. Oh, hold on, I'm just trying to switch this one out. Mark, that sounded, I don't know, it sounded pretty nice to me. Apparently you can get these via Spectravibe, but pre-order, but I think the first lot is sold out. I'm not terribly surprised, because it's definitely did sound pretty nice. What did you think?
Yeah, I like that sound. There's so much stuff, isn't there? I mean, it's overwhelming, the amount of analog synths or kind of clever digital small format things and add-ons and stuff. I mean, it's like we've just got this, I don't know, in the last sort of 5 years, I think the whole market's just been saturated by lots and lots and lots of different people doing lots of very similar things. So how do you choose? How would you choose between that and something similar? I suppose that's where.
What is similar? I don't know what's similar to that, because I hadn't seen something that combined all of those things into sort of one pedal, as far as I could tell. I think this is. I
don't know. I can't answer that. I just noticed that I've got, where I was, where I'd been in software and plugins for so long, I've kind of come out of that because I'm looking for physical things to sell, and there just seems to be so many different things like this, different, I never realized how big the guitar pedal market is. I mean, there's like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different guitar pedals now that it's all new to me because I've been in the software world for so long, I suppose.
Yes, I suppose. No, that's a very good point. I mean, and that's, I think, something that, so there's a whole new load of discovery for this kind of thing. But I just saw this was, I think,
for real physical things, that do things,
I think this was posted on Matrix Synths where I first saw it. Rich, I remember it used to be what was the pedal that everybody used to put keyboards through? Was it the Neutron? Because Stevie Wonder used it and everybody, they sold, I don't know who made that, but I remember trying it and it definitely had a really lovely sound to it. Mutronics. Yeah.
The one to get right on a keyboard, sorry, I've interrupted completely, but the thing that you can nearly almost never get right on a keyboard is the distortion aspect of it. So there's not very many things that distort things that make keyboards sound better, in my opinion. So it's kind of cool that it makes it like more gnarly and more,
I'm guessing it must be
gritty, but it does it in the right way without getting if it gets too dirty, then you lose any kind of focus on what any of the notes are doing, if that makes sense. But this didn't seem to do that. The focus on what was being played was still there, but the tone of the distortion was kind of nice. So
I'm wondering whether it's built for sort of line level rather than instrument guitar level, or whether there's a switch on it. But I don't know. So, Rich, are you fond of the odd pedal, or are you kind of for putting keyboards in? I mean, I'm not sure. We might have had this conversation relatively recently, but as I said, it's summer.
Well, I haven't used pedals in a long time, but this thing really did look and sound very good and seemed to have a lot of very good-sounding modulation capabilities. And behind an instrument like the Mini-Log, it looks like it'd be a really useful thing to have. It goes beyond your typical chorus flange. It does seem to thicken things up nicely and make a good tone out of it. And I agree with Mark about the overdriving aspects, although fair to say that quite a few recent synths, particularly the Arturia ones, offer a lot of overdrive within their signal paths, which add to their versatility and their fat sound quite a bit. But this thing really looks, I mean, if one was looking for something to do these things, this thing looks like a really excellent candidate. I didn't get a sense of the price, but I'm sure it's
I can tell you that it was available for pre-order up until very recently for £184, and I'm not actually totally sure where they're based, whether they're US or UK. Let me see. It may be that they're Asheville again. It's the home of Asheville, where everybody's
a reasonable price.
Yeah, so that's probably
the fact that you can use it as a ring mod and then use your synth to control the ring mod. I think it's clever. So you could split the patch in your synth, so you could actually integrate it in. I mean, if you created a synth patch where you sent something off to the left and something off to the right, and then kind of integrated it, does it work like that?
That's a good question.
It says you can use the mod input to sync the ring mod.
Right, let me see.
So if you're able to sync the ring mod with the synth, that means you could program the synth and integrate it into the synth.
I see what you mean.
Sense.
I'm just waiting for this. There looks like a little carousel here. I'm waiting for it to flip round to the next image, which might be the back panel. Let's see. No.
I mean, what would be clever would be to integrate it with your patches and then to use the ring mod as a part of patches on it, especially on a synth that didn't have a ring modulator.
It doesn't look like you can get
for that price. So
a close up on that. I can't speed. I think there is looks like there's controls for speed and depth there. So yeah, maybe that would work. But nice. I just thought the whole demo is well worth listening to. It really, there's some lovely sounds on there, and it does sort of make it sound more better, even without any of the effect. They're just driving it and they're changing the bias, which I'm guessing is like some sort of a tilt filter, which just sounds really, really good. It's interesting though. Another one in Asheville, which is obviously where the home of Moog. And what's the other one? Portland, Oregon is another sort of hotbed of this kind of thing. And I don't know, is there some kind of financial zoning or planning where that particular state has got funding for these kind of startups or something, or is it just an accident of geography?
Well, I don't know the situations with regard to tax advantages, but both of them are in very, very popular cities that are very nice, and in states that generally seem to be really cool places to live if you don't want to live in one of the major New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, hubs. There are states in the United States that have much more financial benefits for businesses and such, but I don't know that anybody's actually investing in this kind of development at the state level. I think it has more to do with states that have tax advantages for businesses that are starting up, perhaps income tax laws, state income tax laws that are very generous, or perhaps not, you don't have to pay any. I do know of a number of major corporations who are moving to Texas these days because the tax advantages are fantastic and there is no state income tax.
Wow.
Because in this country, quite often you pay income tax to both the federal government and the state government.
Right.
One of the aspects of having 50 states within one sort of umbrella government.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
And among those moving to Texas is Toyota, who have moved their pretty much entire corporate operation to Plano, Texas. And I was there not too long ago talking to people from Toyota about how and why that happens. So I don't really know about Asheville and Portland, except that they're both really nice kind of arts-friendly environments in the U.S. that are slightly outside of the major cities, but still sort of major cities a little bit smaller of their own.
Right, I gotcha.
Another one of those, by the way, would be Ithaca, New York, which is right near where Robert Moog invented the Moog synthesizer, and is an even smaller city, but has a lot of those same sort of artistic advantages, if not the tax advantages.
Ah, okay. Well, that's interesting. I just found the sale page on reverb.com. It's sold out. Maybe you'd like one of these. So, yeah, and that's gone down a bit. So I'm guessing the exchange rate has changed. So this must be against the UK. So 183.97 would have got you it, but sadly no longer because it's been. I'm just trying to see if I can. No, I can't see unless that picture. Oh, yeah, there we go. So we can see that speed, depth, input. Oh, I can't see. Modulation in, output, and input. So, yeah, it's got quite a lot of connectivity. Anyway, I thought that was kind of fun because I just liked the... I just thought it sounded so good. And you just don't often hear things where you just go, ooh, that's really special. I mean, I'm a big fan of the Minilog anyway, so throwing that in there, it just kind of brought it to life a bit more, if that's a possible thing. I guess it might be a good time to have a word from our sponsors. Let's run that ad. This is iZotope's Vocal Synth, multiple module plugin for processing vocals, harmonization with the Polyvox, the vocoder, of course. Two kinds of vocoders, really, because we've also got CompuVox, which is more of, I guess it's like your Sennheiser Kraftwerk type sound, and the TalkBox as well. If you want to check this out, of course, iZotope do offer 10-day free demos. Just go to iZotope.com/Vocal Synth. And, of course, we do have a competition this week. We had one last week, and I want to announce the winner of that. Last week, which was episode 456, we were talking about Ampex tape and stuff as well. We asked you to tweet the hashtag IamRobot and Vocal Synth, and we got an entry from someone called @Daiku1. That's their Twitter handle, @Daiku1. That's DAIKU1. And they said, please, iZotope, I could really use this in a new creative way combined with my guitar work, which sounds like a pretty reasonable reason to win it. So, well, congratulations, you have won it. And, of course, we do have another opportunity to win that this week. All you got to do is you get on Twitter and you tweet out the hashtag VoiceMachine. The hashtag VoiceMachine, that's one word, on the hashtag Vocal Synth, that's one word, to @sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. So that's the hashtag VoiceMachine, the hashtag Vocal Synth, that's one word as well, to @sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And if you enter, we will announce the winner next show. Actually, there is no show next week, I should mention, having a week out, so it'll be a couple of weeks' time. But good luck, and don't forget to get in touch if that was you as the winner. Right, let's... Help! What's the matter, Mark? What happened?
I just went in the chat room and somebody said, Mark, you have dreamy eyes.
Oh.
You're like and then they said, you're like a puppy.
I say. I don't want any of that. We don't want any of that stuff going on here. This isn't the
it's a bit strange, isn't it?
Technoerotica.
I'm flattered but scared. Let's hope it's a man.
Well, either way, it's nice to be liked, whichever way around it is. Right. So let's get on to. We got another topic here. This is I like this. The one-take Rico Loop video. This must have been. I wonder how many takes this took. Rico Loop, very famous or European looper. Did a lot of work with the Boss RC series. You see them at trade shows. I think this is actually in Berlin. So he's mobile and doing it live with a mic. Must have a battery pack in there. And this whole sequence is just beautifully choreographed. And takes quite a long time to get going, but I'll see if I fast forward it a bit, because there's some great moments. So the whole thing is this sort of one shot where he just ends up. He has got a great sense of rhythm, this guy. And on we go until finally. I think he picks up a bottle. Yeah, he picks up various props on the way. I keep thinking he looks like a bus conductor with that, an old-fashioned bus conductor. But it's a great video.
On the street to be, on the street to be.
And what's really weird about that video is, you're kind of thinking, wow, all of those people around him must be, but they can't hear, obviously, what he's got in his headphones. They're only hearing the thing that he's doing at the time. So to them, he probably seems like an absolute nutter. I know, Rich, have you ever seen Rico Loop in the flesh? He's probably done festival tours as well. I mean, it's entirely possible you might have crossed paths, but again, maybe not.
Well, I can't say for sure if it was this guy or not, but we recently played a festival in France where the act that went on before, we were actually the headliner at this jazz festival in Vienna. And the guy who went on before us was apparently a prodigy of, or had been discovered by, Quincy Jones. And he was a young man, about 18 years old, who was extraordinarily talented on a whole range of instruments, including keyboards, drum kits, various percussion items. I don't recall. He had guitars and basses on at various points. And his entire show is performed live, creating these kinds of looping environments. And I don't recall for sure whether or not there were backing tracks to which he was doing that on occasion or not. But he could layer up. He also sang amazingly well. And he could layer up some really, really interesting stuff pretty quickly. And for me, it was a very, very interesting thing to see, because as a concert experience, it's a little bit like sitting in a recording studio and watching somebody create, which is very different from typically what happens in a concert. And because there's no live interaction between him and anything except what he's just recorded, a lot of the weight of attention is focused entirely on him throughout the entire performance. So as a live performance vehicle, I thought it was interesting and perhaps difficult to sustain over a long period of time, even though he was absolutely brilliant at it and incredibly gifted and a nice kid.
That's true.
But I can't say whether it was this guy or not.
I know this guy's a bit older than that, and he's. But what's really I agree with that. That there's a real art to being able to, because you have to build it from scratch, assuming you don't have any pre-made loops that you're going to build on top of, and therefore the audience has to wait. So you end up with a very different dynamic. It's absolutely true, and we've spoken to a number of loopers. We had I think Susie Conrad in here. Obviously, we did that interview with Rachel Claudio, who's brilliant, and she tends to try and start with a basis and kind of perform those things that she's made live. So there is interactivity, but it's a kind of different dynamic. And she said very much, it's like, well, people don't want to sit there and watch me layer up 12 vocals to get that lovely harmony section. They just want me to cut to it, or maybe I'll do something over the top of it. And that it does introduce a very different dynamic. But I mean, looping in general, I mean, it's really there's a whole bunch of artists who are doing it now. I mean, obviously they're not always doing it from scratch. I don't know. Have you seen? First of all, Mark, what did you think of this? Have you seen Rico Loop before?
I haven't seen Rico Loop before. What I thought of it was, I was watching it and I was thinking, this is quite interesting. And then about 2 minutes in, I recognised that this guy moves like Gaz Williams. He's got similar kind of walk and body language and everything. And I thought, actually, you know what? Gaz thinks in that way as well. And I could see Gaz doing something like this as well. So it reminded me a lot of him. The whole layering things and the way the guy was thinking about where he's putting things in the music and all that sort of stuff. So, because I think Gaz does something similar with samplism, I'm almost certain, actually.
Yes, I think he has done looping stuff, yeah.
And it is a strange thing, isn't it? I was watching the people around him's reactions to him, so he kind of wanders up and does this kind of wiggle in front of this girl and something on that. What was that? What are those things called? The reed harmonica blowing
melodica.
Harmonium, yeah.
Melodica.
Melodica, yeah. So he does something on that, and she's kind of looking at him like, what on earth are you doing? And he does a little wiggle and wanders off and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump to the other end of it. Nothing to do with this guy. I saw another guy called Noisy Parrot, who's a busker.
Right.
Who has like a bloody great big 15-inch speaker, and then a couple of some other speakers and a load of car batteries or something in this thing that he wheels around on a trolley. And that's got two Korg, I was going to say chaos oscillators, but they're not. There's a chaos pad version sampler thing.
Chaos Pad Pro, yeah, I think that's the full.
Yeah,
that's great.
So he loops stuff up, and he creates completely from scratch. So it's got traffic noise and everything in it, which I think is really clever. And then he has a DJ mixer in the middle, and he flips back and forth between the two machines and switches all the loops in and out, and just does these performances. And that's where I think it gets clever, when somebody, as they're constructing, they're already thinking about how they're going to get to the chorus or the middle eight, and how they're going to change the key for the middle eight, or how they're going to change the feel or whatever. So they're layering things they can use later, and then switching it back into a whole different kind of, he gets to the middle and changes the whole sound. And it's like, I'm looking at him thinking, why on earth did you do that? But then I'm also tracking some of the things he did and thinking, I see how you got where I hear all the elements that went in earlier on, but you've put them together in a different way.
Yeah.
I didn't notice this guy did that. This guy just carried on adding and adding and adding and adding and adding and adding.
Well, he took things out as well. I think that he was using the Boss RC505, which has a 5-channel stereo looper, I think. But it comes out. I wonder, there's an element of this thing when you see people do that. It's like, it feels like there's just this direct connection. Is idea, music, the gap, the distance is this big between the idea, and because most of it's like a lot of it's beatboxed or just found things or whatever, it happens so quickly, and that the idea happens so quickly, I suppose, rather than.
But they're practiced and accomplished in it, aren't they?
Yeah.
They do it all day long, and they're practiced and accomplished in it, and they make it look unbelievably easy. And whenever I try doing it, I'm rubbish at it, if I'm honest. It's like,
have you tried?
I could be one of those cool looping guys. I've tried doing it with Ableton, and I've tried doing it with, Gaz told me to try the loop. There is a looper in Ableton as well, I think, which you can click in and out. Never really got it to work. I did do it years ago in the 80s. I had this thing called a Powertran MCS1, and we used to loop stuff up, and the cool thing about that was you could turn the pitch up and down. So I would sing something into it and then slow it right down, then layer like loads of harmonies.
I see, I think you could do a lot of that stuff with the Boss, because the Boss has got loads of effects. Rich, have you ever tried the looping thing? Because it's very much, it's a sort of sense of wonder, isn't it, when you see somebody do this and you go, wow, that's amazing. And you think, obviously you're a great player, and so, you think your path to music, out of your brain would be quite short. Have you ever tried this sort of thing, as a guilty secret when no one's looking, see if you could pull something together quickly? I find it quite fascinating that it's not as easy as it looks, is it? I don't think.
I'm sure it's not, but no, I haven't tried it. I do see it being used quite often on small gig levels. Like I have a friend in Florida who's a fantastic guitarist whose work I tend to participate on, and he gigs with a looper pedal. And will quite often record a whole rhythm guitar track into the looper and hit go and then be soloing over it. And it's very seamless in the way he operates it. So I see quite a lot of that. As I said, the most interesting aspects to this are to what extent in our current culture it represents a live performance in terms of the way an audience participates with the creator in doing it. And simultaneous to that, I also noticed that there's a lot more headphone culture than there's ever been. I guess people have been walking the streets with headphones on for as long as there have been things called Walkmans and all of the descendant devices since then. But I don't think there's ever been a time where more people are walking around oblivious to the sounds around them than there is now. And I see quite a bit of it, especially more and more with young people. And so this sort of fits into that cultural shift that I perceive to be going on, where the whole headphone, walking around the world with headphones on culture seems to grow into this simultaneous looping thing, and you get very talented people. This guy's obviously very talented. But no, in short, I haven't tried it.
Okay. Well, if you're interested in more of this stuff, obviously Beardy Man is one of the kind of probably at the pinnacle of this. With his iPad set. We did Gaz filmed a great piece with him when he played in Bath, I think last year in the autumn. And if you check that out on the site, just look for the Beardy Man. It's on YouTube. It's a great, and you get an insight of how he does it. But I have a feeling that he is one of those people that would probably casually toss into a conversation, oh yeah, I've got a photographic memory, So, it's just his ability to kind of just remember stuff and do it and do it spontaneously is astonishing. Anyway, that was Rico Loop, and he was using again the Boss RC505, which I think is Boss's current looper, and I think it's had a firmware update, so it allows you to add various different aspects to it. I think I was having a chat with Gaz a couple of weeks ago about this and thinking about, that might actually be something quite good to use with modular stuff. In fact, I think James Bernard has been putting together various different ambient sort of sets and stuff with modular and that, so you create a texture, loop it, go on, make a new sound at it, and that I don't know what that's like to watch live, but the sum of the parts is obviously good fun, and it's quite a quick way of multi-tracking. But anyway, let's get on to this topic. What's this one? Oh yeah, this is the massive Soundtoys sale. Now this got brought up a couple of times. They've extended it through August. I know a lot of people like the Soundtoys plugins, and they're doing like 50% off all of their cracking plugins, and also they got a 50% off bundle. You can buy the entire thing. It was $100 off, so you get all 18 Soundtoys plugins for $399. And Rich, I'm fairly sure we've talked to you about Soundtoys stuff. Do you use some of their stuff in your setup?
Yes, absolutely. And as a disclaimer, I should say that I've been testing for them for decades now. So they're friends of mine. They're friends of mine, and there is a bias here. I quite love them as people, and I quite love their products, which is how it all began anyway, back when they were Wave Mechanics in the 90s. And I use their stuff a lot, and it's fantastic stuff. And a bunch of it does things that I don't know any other way to do. And then even the things that do stuff that you can do other ways tend to do them in really, really cool ways and have amazing feature sets that allow you to go much deeper. I recently saw one of their promotional videos where somebody was doing sort of dance work and using the effects rack to modify these various loops that they had been working on, and were able to get stunning levels of realism and creative modification going just within the plugins themselves. But even just using Echo Boy as a standard, that seems to be the one, doesn't it? And that, if I'm right, does that model various different types of classic echoes? Is that the basic principle of that? Let me see if I can find it. Typically I just put it up in tape mode and use it on a lead vocal. I mean, I tend to use it as an emulation for a tape machine that would once have done this. And even just doing that with it, it sounds fantastic and offers a lot more versatility. There are other ways to do it. I think Waves' H delay gets close on some of that stuff regarding Echo Boy, but there's nothing out there like their crystallizer, and there's the tremolator. You might be able to get other ways of doing it, but tremolator is a fantastic
what's the CPU hit like?
Not terrible. I mean, I can't be more specific than that, but not terrible. They've got a plugin that models an Altec tube mixer called Radiator that is absolutely one of my favorite Mojo plugins, which is to say a plugin that is a tonal sort of supplementation rather than some sort of great big swooping modifier. Radiator is fantastic. And
wow.
They have one called Decapitator, which is a distortion unit that's really, really incredibly versatile and very cool, and emulates the sounds of various vintage gear being overdriven. And they're just really, really good guys who make really, really good products, and I really like supporting people like that.
Well, I think that's fair dues, and it looks like the Radiator is currently $99 as opposed to it's does that say 99? No, it's 59 from 129. That seems like a bit of a steal. Well worth it. Mark, have you checked out their stuff? I mean, I know. Robbie, I know, is a real fan of theirs and stuff as well.
Well, now Rich has mentioned that it's Wave Mechanics, then yes, but many moons ago. I remember the Wave. Didn't they do like some kind of tape emulator thing that made? Was it those guys, Rich?
Wow.
The green-coloured plug-in that made it actually sound like it had been recorded on 2-inch tape. Was it that one?
No, I think you're thinking of McDSP's analog channel, but which is still
maybe. I'm amused by the fact that they've emulated the prime time That is definitely amusing because I love things with weird numbers, and the whole prime time thing was that the delays were only prime numbers, wasn't it, if I remember rightly? So I wonder if they've stuck to that principle and only put prime numbered delays in, or if they've put all the ones in between. And I clicked on Echo Boy as we were just talking and noticed that all of those things in that picture are things which I've had and used in the past. Deluxe Memory Man is by far my favourite delay ever, which I had as a foot pedal, the Electro Harmonics Memory Man with the modulation. And the Line 6 version of the Memory Man's pretty good, and it sort of does what I vaguely remember my Memory Man did. Doesn't quite crack, doesn't quite break out in distortion on the when you turn the feedback up full in quite the same way as the pedal did, but it's still good. So I don't know, maybe as an alternative, if this one breaks up in a really kind of nasty way, maybe I should go and download this demo and see if I like them. Oh, it says try it free.
Yeah,
so
no,
maybe I should.
Well, it brings me to another question, really, which is kind of obviously all these fantastic little kind of, because people are mentioning in the chat room UVI, Ohm Force, all these kind of great sounding kind of tonal things that have this sort of secret mojo or just do things other ones don't, and we still haven't got to the position where somebody could just make a piece of hardware that you could load these things in and not actually have to. I mean, well, they have, but it's not something that's ever really kind of caught the mainstream. Obviously, there have been goes at it, but something where you could just go, here it is, dial the program in, bang, hit it, and that's what it is. So it's a studio rack effects. And make it, You mean
like the V Machine, which was that?
Well, like the V Machine, and also I'm trying to remember the name of the other guys. They were
Muse
Receptor, which did really well, but didn't quite ever get big enough to kind of be the ipso de facto standard for this kind of thing.
What I've noticed more than anything else is all of us guys, live in a world where we have embodied computers and we understand how they work, and we're kind of in this whole plug-in world. Most people our age aren't, and are scared of computers and don't know anything about them. So most of the people my age who come into my shop I say, you can do that all with a computer. You just need to get the VST plugin that goes this. They glaze over and go, oh man, don't talk to me about computers. I don't know anything about them. And then they bring out some ancient Nokia phone, and I'm sort of like going, well, you can do it on an iPhone. And they go, no, I've only got this, and I don't really know how to text on it. So I think as musicians, we're probably quite unusual in our kind of cross talent thing.
Yeah, maybe so.
Say that. And that most musicians would love to have something with one or two knobs on it that they could do all these things, but then it was accessible, because its accessibility and making it accessible for people who do understand how to plug a jack socket into one side and into another and have two dials, and they can see that one says tone and the other one says time or something. I mean, I do think that anything that could simplify the interface and make it accessible for people,
I think that's part of the problem.
Would be a huge seller.
But that is part of the problem. I mean, to run something that is a host with all of these kind of capabilities, because if you're going to do it, people are going, oh well, I'd like to be able to chain maybe 4 or 5 up, and then this works with that. I don't know, Richard. Are you? Sorry.
I was going to say some would, but I actually think that there's a lot of people out there that don't want to do that, and they just want one thing that does one thing. So out of all the customers come in to my shop, the most asked for thing is, have you got a chorus pedal? And I'm like, well, you can do chorus with this, or you can do chorus with this. I've got this Dave Smith black box thing here that you can do it without all this Line 6 thing. And they're all like, no, I don't want any of that. Have you got a chorus pedal? And it's just like, whoa, okay. So I've had to order some in, but it seems like a backward step to me. But it's not for them. But if you had this, VST plug-in running thing, maybe I could configure it for people and go, there's a chorus pedal. That one's, and, can you remember the sampler we had on here a while ago that was based on a Raspberry Pi?
Yeah.
So you basically, and it was in a cigar box or something, wasn't it? Or a very simple box. You plug it in, it boots the code, you plug in a MIDI, and you've got a piano. So and the code is the hard drive for the code was
a flash
locked
drive,
or copy protected. Yeah. So you just give them a locked system and go, this is it. Yeah, turn that knob and you get depth. Turn that knob and you get rate. But actually, it's based on a computer. And if you're bored of your... and actually, I was just going to say that Zoom have got a pedal that does this, haven't they? Well, so when the person gets bored of it, they come back the next week and you could reprogram it for them, I suppose. But
yeah. I don't know, Rich. I mean, we've seen people try it. There's the Tone Print stuff, there's the TC Helicon stuff, there's the Line 6 attempts of that. But nobody's really They all want to tie it to their own format. There's very little kind of seems motivation to just make something that will just run and people can do it very easily. Go, I want that now. Okay, that's the input knob, that's the output. Let's go. It's funny. I wonder why, really, because we've got this huge resource of stuff. I guess it just becomes complicated to authorize things, to install them if you're not using an actual computer front end.
Well, first of all, Mark's point about the consumer level is really, really well taken. And it's an interesting trend because basically people just still want a Roland Boss chorus pedal that just does that. And next to it, they want a Roland delay pedal or somebody else's delay pedal. And even though there's this myriad of small companies now making pedals, it's big business these days. Pedals is huge.
Yeah.
And having little building block stuff, kind of like that Korg thing, where you're assembling your own effects chain seems to be more attractive to some of those people than buying this big Boss thing with, or whoever, Line 6 thing with like 6 switches on it and the ability to do 1,000 different kinds of digital effects. And there's a market for that too, and there are those guys too, and that also falls into sort of the Leaper discussion we were just talking about before. But as a social trend, what's interesting to me is simultaneous to the guys who want nothing more than a chorus pedal is the proliferation of modular gear coming out of decades of just simplifying things under one interface and storing everything digitally. And now we've got guys buying these expansive Eurorack systems where they can customize every single aspect of it. They can even build their own in some cases. And there's this sort of interesting simultaneous cultural shift that includes that, as well as the guy who may or may not be my age who wants a chorus pedal and nothing more than a chorus pedal, and not some programmable thing that could become a chorus pedal or a delay or a distortion or anything else. It just, they want one thing with 2 knobs on it that does one thing for them. And it's interesting to me.
I think the closest we've probably got is iOS, isn't it? The where things, in fact, there's a topic coming up which we might do next, actually, which is, is because people are used to having a phone about the place or an iPod or an iPad or something, and that's about as close as we got. But still, that again, it's another platform, and some of these things are so great, and you just can't get them on iOS. Like say the Soundtoys range or the UVI range or whatever, and it is a bit of a shame. Anyway, shall we go on to sorry.
One more point about Soundtoys and trends in general is that they've now integrated everything they make into single interface form called the effects rack that allows you to take all of their products and line them up in different ways within the effects rack and create macro patches that include all of these things and are savable and recallable in any of the DAWs that you choose to use at the time, or probably in some cases even in a standalone desktop format. And this all sort of descends on some level from the Wave Shell concept that Waves introduced decades ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies are doing that as well. They're making their stuff available to another level of macro creation where you can use combinations of things and store it as a single effect sound or what have you. And Soundtoys' implementation of the effects rack has really helped streamline the use of their devices in multiple configurations as a storable event.
I'll have to check that out. I mean, I guess I'm just because I'm not using so much in the box now, and like I've mentioned before, when I do sessions now, I tend to show up and I try and use the native things in any DAW, so that if there's not a B system which has all of the UA stuff or all of this or all of that, it'll still run, and that's just the way I tend to try and.
That's really sensible thing to do, actually. I kind of would go that way myself now as well.
Yeah. Okay, right, let's get on to this one. This is kind of interesting because it sort of fooled me a little bit. This is what I thought was actually a new Yamaha keyboard. This is the MX49 61, which is now available in a couple of different colours. Some new voices. And is actually class compliant, which I think it always has been. And you get this FM essential. I won't play the whole thing, but I was thinking, because I got a press release saying, hey, we're announcing a new synth tomorrow. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I started looking, and I put it into the show notes, and then I started researching it. It was like, wait a minute, this isn't a new synth at all. It's the same synth that was released in 2013, which, okay, is not a bad thing. And I think it uses the same AWM2 synth engine, or a derivative of that, which actually I think Yamaha have been sort of rather overlooked at the power of that. It's an immensely powerful system. But the other thing that was kind of cool about this was this Essential FM patch, which iOS device, which when you hook it up, you can interface directly with it. You can hook it over USB. But this raised a few questions. One, I don't know, Rich, if you've been aware of the MX range, because it's a derivative of the Motif engine. You know, it's sort of ongoing. But I look back, and it was released in, I think it was 2012. I found a kind of this is coming, a sort of teasing a new synth. So it's a good 5 years old, but nonetheless, it's still, a lot of these things they generally are very, very powerful little workstations. I had the same thing as I was looking back at a Juno DI review yesterday, and I thought, wow, that was actually really good, and that's discontinued. And sometimes these things do slip under the radar. I mean, it is amazing that you can get that kind of power. Did you get a chance to check out the FM side of this? I guess you've been in bed or gigging. Oh, you're muted.
I actually didn't get a chance to check this thing out. I got about as far as the topic before this in my preparation. It's 8 in the morning.
Yeah, no, that's understandable.
Yeah. But the demos sound good. I haven't seen anybody using them at the gigs that I do, but that doesn't mean nobody's using them. It's just at the gigs that I do. I suppose that people probably could and should, and they're probably really cost-effective, versatile products. I've had a sort of a lifelong difficulty with the wonkiness of Yamaha operating systems and operating their instruments. Even when they sound great, I find them cumbersome. And I think that just has more to do with my experience and not having been exposed to somebody who's really good at it who could show me around. And their demo sounds a little bit like Avicii in a box.
Yeah, I know
which is fine, which is great because people love that. And they love those kinds of sounds. And if those sounds are available in the instruments, I'm sure they're very popular for that. But I don't really have a lot to say in terms of opinions about it because I haven't used it.
Maybe what I'm going to do is I'll play the FM Essentials part of this because I was really impressed with some of these sounds. This is the promo video for that. I think. Okay. Or is it? No, that looks like it's not, actually. So that's probably...
I'm not hearing anything, actually.
No, that's a wrong video. I haven't got that. Let me see. I can probably bring it up on the browser. Let me see. That's entirely possible. So if I just plug me sound in. So this is... Mark, did you have anything to say about it? I mean, this kind of workstation approach...
Do I have anything to say about it? It looks like a DX7 on steroids a bit, doesn't it? So I feel like I'm left with a very small window to do things with, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And in this day and age, we've got so much access to so many, very visual ways of doing things that I would feel this doesn't look like a 2016 synthesizer to me. But then again, it kind of sounds like one, so... the reverbs on it are nice, and one thing that all-in-one things tend not to have going for them is they tend to have a pretty not great reverb on board. The reverbs on the demo sounded all right.
I wonder. Actually, I can't remember they have a specific synth engine. I think it's VCM. I think is what they use, or I think VCM is the kind of effects that they have. I think Roland's Cosm and Yamaha's VCM. So I'm guessing it might be that. I have found now the video for the FM Essential, which is again another kind of one of those astonishing kind of scenarios where it's on your phone. This guy starts making a sound on it. I think this is a 4 operator. But some of the sounds in here I thought were really impressive, actually. So I guess he's controlling this because it's class compliant with the MX. Oh, I'll stop that actually because that's quite loud. But that looked kind of cool. I like the fact that you can access this, and those are sort of FM sounds that I haven't actually. They sound like new FM sounds. They sound like sounds that have been programmed now, rather than here's the electric piano, here's the log drum, here's the marimba. And I think that's probably a good thing. And it looks like the interface has a little bit more potential to go on. And that, I mean, I know that's something that we've been sort of. As many people have said, FM is such a powerful synthesis system, but it's so hard to use.
What if we take a sample and feed it in one side of an FM system, and another sample and feed it in the other side? Or instead of having sine waves for operators, we could put samples in all of those.
That's an interesting idea.
Possibly that's what's going on, but I mean that would create some really interesting sounds. But not with a tiny. I think it's a cop out. I mean, I can see that you can use it with your phone and you can use that as an interface for it, or maybe an iPad or something. But I couldn't think of this as a standalone system with that tiny, tiny little 2-line LCD on it. It's just a cop-out.
Okay.
It needs a bigger screen to work with.
This is the MX you're talking about, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. Especially if it's, I mean, that's what we are talking about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I know you're talking about
No,
MXBKBU, but the
take your
MX
point.
is just like, it's not quite everything, is it? It's like, and if it's claiming to be everything, then it ought to be.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. But anyway, it's a sort of re-release in blue and black with some new voices, and it fooled me because they didn't keep the they didn't put the details unless you downloaded the PDF from the press site. So I feel a bit duped, but it made me kind of reevaluate a little bit because I went back and I looked at because a lot of these keyboards. I remember when I reviewed the Juno DI, for instance, I thought it was going to be a nightmare and awful, and actually it was really good. For the money, I should add. It's not signature sounds necessarily, but a lot.
How much does this cost then? The MX? How much are they?
Oh yeah, Yamaha MX. I think it's probably about 500. MX49. Let's have a look. I should have looked this up, but that's one thing I lacked. 446 for the 49.
Okay,
so that's
very reasonable.
That's pretty reasonable, isn't it? And again, you get the AWM, and I think there is an editor. There was an editor for one of the Moxes I did, and the depth is crazy. I mean, you got 16-part multi-timbre. I think that you can have up to 8 oscillators per voice. I mean, it's really, really crazy stuff. I mean, in terms of resources, it may be cut down a little bit on this version. I'd have to check the exact spec, but I obviously haven't, so apologies.
I imagine a boardroom meeting where somebody says, I wanted to work on these too. And, they managed to make some really nice integration that allows you to use your existing hardware devices, even if it's just an iPhone, with their hardware device to expand the capabilities and make it cooler.
Yeah.
I kind of get where they're coming from, and at that price point, there's a lot of capability available, and I understand Mark's concern about display size, because I quite often feel that way.
And I wonder, this raises the question to me is, what sort of CPU and ASIC and all of the things that you have in a dedicated hardware keyboard, what power does that have that perhaps, is an iPhone 6 got more than that, or an iPad Pro got more than that, go and must do. I mean, there must be a point at which you could actually go, well, yeah, you could actually just stick it on an iOS device and it would be way more powerful, or might have access to more samples or access to a better interface. I mean, it's an interesting thought that it might not be necessary.
Yeah.
Two things about that are that, first of all, people seem to want self-contained hardware devices that do a lot of stuff. And so, and corollary to that is there's not a whole lot of money in releasing your entire instrument as an iOS app.
No, well, that's true. Apple gets the cash, basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is a very valid point. I mean, where's the incentive? Just because you can doesn't mean you should if you want to stay in business.
I mean, I have tons of great music apps on all my iOS devices, and I have to say I hardly use them. I use them some, and I'm sure there are people who use them all the time.
Yeah.
But I think by and large in the current culture, people like having hardware devices. They like touching things, having knobs to turn, having things to do, pitch wheels.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Ribbon strips and XY controllers and, freaking joysticks. And people like having that stuff right now. Hardware is very, very popular.
That's
the
true.
words hardware and analog are like at the top of the, list of fashionable things these days. And the idea that you can do it in software and that it might not be analog is...
Bib says in the chat room, I want an instrument that that doesn't keep popping up SMS, which is a very valid point. It's easy to be distracted as well when your device is multitasking.
I want an instrument that doesn't want me to upgrade it every time I turn it on.
Yeah, could do.
And then
that.
when I switch it on and I think, oh, all right, then I'll upgrade it. It then says, sorry, I can't run on your operating system. You need to upgrade your operating system. And then I think, oh God, okay, fine, I'll upgrade that. And then the operating system says, sorry, I can't run on your computer. You've got to buy a new computer. And it's just...
Yeah, right.
You just think, I just wasted 3 hours of my life upgrading everything I wish they'd told me that first, or that's happened to me a number of times.
Yeah.
And then you've gone like, all this hardware. Do you know what I bought at the weekend, actually?
Do tell.
I bought an iMac. And the latest operating system that it can run is operating system 10.7, which is Lion. And I went, I don't want to do that, though, because I want access to Rosetta. So I've put 10.6 on it. And I'm looking at 10.6 and I'm thinking, wow, how come there's so much more information on the screen? And I think computing's come down this kind of like, we've got to make it run as a flash thing. And actually, we've got these huge screens and let's make everything really big and put really big buttons on everything. And then people will buy bigger and bigger screens or whatever. Or so that you can use it with a touch interface and then touch that screen. They have to make things big enough for our big fat fingers as human beings. But I think 10.6 was kind of the pinnacle of the Mac operating system. It just looks nicer and the layout of information is more clear for me anyway. So I'm kind of like having a weird revelation where I've gone like, I've bought this second-hand computer for 50 quid. And I can do all this stuff on it. Isn't that cool? Like burning DVDs. Try doing that on a Mac Mini.
That's a very good point. It's sort of, and I think the thing is that's often by the time you get to think, I wonder what it was like, it's so far away from where you are now that your familiarity with that is less likely to be. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Well, I think this is probably a good time to say goodbye. I'm actually going to scarper out of the office. I'm going fly fishing this evening, and I'm hoping that I'm actually going to catch something. This is only the second time I've ever been. And my brother bought me a tutorial afternoon on how to do it, and I bought some very cheap equipment. So I'm now going to go and see if I can catch a fish this evening. And it looks like the wind's dropped and the sun is out. So
are you going to eat it afterwards?
I don't know whether I'm going to keep.
Or are you going to throw it back?
I think I'll throw it back this time, just because I don't know what I'm doing. I need to be a bit more mentally prepared for the actual possibility of eating something that I catch, or even catching it. I mean, if I catch 3, maybe I'll keep one of them. I don't know. This is all news, and I'm not sure I've got the right equipment to actually, deal with that.
Just need a very sharp knife.
Yeah, I haven't got one of those with me, Mark, actually. But maybe next time I will, depending. But I'm looking forward to it. So anyway, but thank you for the advice. So that's what I'm going to do this afternoon and, this evening. So thank you very much, everybody, for watching. That's been Sonic Talk 457. I did try and think that there was some kind of number thing, and I got confused with between Ampex tape and the Magnum handgun, which I think is 357. Neither of which, Ampex we did last week, Magnum's probably not really appropriate for music technology, unless we're talking about maybe Layla Schifrin and the soundtrack to the Dirty Harry movies. That could have been an angle, but it's too late now because the show's over. But if you like what you saw, remember there's no show next week, but do subscribe. We put videos up on Sonic State all the time, so there'll be a whole bunch of other things coming. Just to remind you before we go, if you want to enter the iZotope competition, I should say, you could tweet the hashtag Voice Machine and the hashtag Vocal Synth to @SonicState and @iZotope Inc. That's Voice Machine, one word, and Vocal Synth, one word, @SonicState and @iZotope Inc. And we'll pick a winner next time. But now I'll just say goodbye to our guests. Thank you very much, Mark, for joining us. I hope your shop season continues to be great. You have many more of those best day evers.
Yeah, well, if they continue to improve, maybe I can branch out and move to a larger premises.
Woo! There's exciting.
I could get more than 3 people in my shop at once. 5 people came in the other day, and it was like, oh God, I can't move. So believe me when I say it's a very small shop, but it would be great if it expands. I'm having more fun in there than I've had in years. So
well, I am glad to hear
that's the important thing.
That certainly is. Well, thanks for joining us, Mark.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to see it's going well. And also, Rich, thank you also for getting out of bed early when I'm sure you're tired and probably have other things to do, like go for a walk in the lovely holiday resort and, whatever it is. But thank you for joining us, Rich, and I hope you have a great gig tonight as well.
Well, thanks for having me, and I wish you good luck with your hardware-driven analog fishing experience.
Thank you. I will. I've got to learn how to cast the line first. But so that's it for this week. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time. I'm pressing a button. I can't remember which one it is. Is it that one?